Hey, good morning, and welcome to Macro Pro and Friends. Have you heard the good news? In California, the masks are coming off, but we do want to urge all of you to do everything you can to protect yourself and to protect your community. That's so important. I'm Diane Cohen, and I'm joined today with Darcy Simmons. Hi, Darcy. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Diane, for having me here today.
Now you're with Home Care Connect. What is it that you do for the company?
I am the regional account manager for the whole West Coast.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yep, I have a big territory to cover, but we're nationwide with all of our services.
So does that include Hawaii? Because inquiring minds want to know if you get to go to Hawaii.
It sure does. So I need to drum up some business there.
Anybody listening to Hawaii, please call Darcy.
Please.
Well, before we get started with today's program, I want to tell you just a little bit about the program and what you can expect. So again, I'm Diane Cohen. I'm with Macro Pro. We are a document retrieval company. We're the company that goes out and secures your records for your litigated and claims file. We are your deposition officer so that we can get everything that you need. This is something that we've done for many years. Macro Pro has been in business for over 35 years. We're a woman-owned business, and we can get it done for you. So please call on Macro Pro when you need records. Secondly, I'd like to say that Macro Pro provides these programs typically monthly, once or twice a month, and we hope that we can advance your educational needs and get you the certificates you need. Speaking of certificates, you will be receiving your certificate in roughly 1 hour after the presentation. So please make sure that you download that immediately. It will take a few minutes sometimes, depending on the browser that you're using. So you'll see a little wheel that goes around, around, and around. Don't worry about that. Eventually your certificate will pop up. If it doesn't, you will have to try a different browser. We do have the ability for you to ask questions and to answer questions. So make sure that you use the question section of the control panel. And speaking of the control panel, it holds your handouts for today. So be sure to download the handouts so you can refer back to them. Now, Darcy, can you tell us a little bit about what your company does?
I sure can. So we cover home health and durable medical equipment nationwide with all of our services. Under the home health umbrella, that would take care of your skilled nursing, IV antibiotics, home health aides, in-home PT and OT and companion care. And then on the durable medical equipment side would be your canes, crutches, and walkers, as well as custom braces, scooters, wheelchairs, beds, orthotics and prosthetics, home and vehicle modifications, temporary and permanent, and then hearing aids, of course. Nationwide with all of those services. If the injured worker is unable to go home for any reason, we do have post-acute care facilities, and they're nationwide for those as well. But since home health agencies are getting inundated right now and very packed, we ask that if an injured worker is having a surgery coming up, then just reach out to us in the weeks leading up to that surgery so we can proactively arrange everything. So there's no delays and you get the continuum of care. So
it's interesting you should mention that, Darcy, because of COVID, we're still experiencing so many slowdowns, and it sounds like this is impacting you guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. And once we have a handle on it, like if we can work with you guys, a week or two, then we're able to find those agencies, and then it's just so much. The streamline just goes so smooth. So definitely let us know.
I was so excited that we can take our mask off in California, but the truth of the matter is we still see in the document retrieval business a great slowdown in getting records. Some facilities are fast, but others are not. I know that there are some pharmaceutical companies, in order to get copies of records from the pharmacy, we're about 8 months behind. And
Absolutely.
so, you just don't know that things are taking as long as they are unless you need those records, right? And so we're just asking everybody to be patient. It doesn't matter what company you utilize. The slowdowns are real, and just be patient. Be patient with everybody in the system and the process, because although things are getting better, they're not gone. So can you tell us a little bit about your speaker today? Because this is a great topic, the healing power of humor. I think we all can use a little humor. It's kind of like I posted for Groundhog's Day. Haven't we had Groundhog's Day for 2 consecutive years? And I think, it's important that we just make light of things and smile through these things. So I'm looking forward to today's presentation.
Definitely. And if anybody, I know everybody's remote right now. I have these great little marketing packets with 2022 calendar strips. I can go ahead and pop those in the mail to you. Just go ahead and send me your address. So today we're going to have Teresa Williams. She is the founder and chief officer of Home Care Connect. She founded it in 2011. Teresa earned her bachelor's of sociology degree from Georgia Southern University in Statesboro and her master's of social work from Florida State University in Tallahassee. And today she's going to be talking about the healing power of humor. And I believe you'll find it all very interesting. So, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at any time in the chat button or at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Teresa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Darcy. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. As Diane and Darcy mentioned, I think we could all definitely use some humor right now. As Darcy mentioned, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and one of the things that I'm always tasked with doing within our company as well as with our clients is talk a lot about stress and relieving stress and how to take care of yourself. So I think today's topic is extremely timely in that going to give you some information about how humor can actually heal. And as Darcy mentioned, if you have questions, just put them over in the chat box and we'll try to answer them along the way. And then we'll also have a little bit of time toward the end of the presentation to maybe answer some more questions as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the objectives for today are to, first of all, talk and explain the history and research on humor. We want to list the benefits of humor and laughter. We want to talk about and discuss the links between laughter and mental health, which we all can use, of course, and then describe ways to introduce humor in your life. So before we get started, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. And this just came hot off the press today from Work Comp Wire. I'm not sure how many people in workers' comp get the Work Comp Wire note every day, but the Hartford just came out with some incredible statistics about declining health and burnout among employees. And the reason I wanted to talk about these statistics is because as we go through the program, there's going to be some ways that we're going to identify how humor can help in our lives right now, not only with our job, but also in our personal lives. And so one of the things that, I just want to read a couple of these stats. The Hartford found that 43% of U.S. workers have delayed routine health care and appointments. The delay in care comes also when people 42% are reporting declines in their mental health. 41% are reporting declines in their social well-being. 32% are reporting declines in their financial security. Remember, you heard about the Great Resignation where like 400 million people left in November of this past year. And then 29% report that their physical health has also declined during COVID. The burnout rate, and I get this, of the recipients, there are over 2,000 people that were polled in this survey. They said 61% reported burnout in January. That was just last month. And then 63% said their overall health and wellness has impacted their work productivity, and 30% noted that they're less engaged in their work, and 25% said that they have difficulty concentrating or focusing. Obviously, that's going to impact our work productivity as well. It also impacts our personal lives, dealing with our children, dealing with our spouses, significant others. So all of these stats are just incredibly mind-blowing that it's this high. And then the last thing I wanted to mention in this research that they found is that the 5 top injuries that resulted in short-term disability, top 5, with those multiple skeletal injuries like neck or back pain, some people were out with COVID. Digestive disorders was number 3, but the number 4th illness, short-term disability illness, was mental health conditions. Fourth out of five of the top five injuries for short-term disability. Again, that's mind-blowing, thinking about how this pandemic and COVID and the stress of this past 2 years is really taking its toll on people. And so what we want to do today is talk a little bit about, you know, the whole deal of humor and how we can utilize it in our lives. So first, I want to start with some fast facts on laughter. So babies start laughing at about the age of 4 months old. On average, a child laughs 300 times a day, while adults laugh only 15 to 17 times. So I guess as we get older, we get a little more jaded and don't laugh as much. Adults between the ages of 18 and 34 reporting laughing the most. So that I guess when we get above 35, we become extremely jaded and don't laugh as much or find humor as much as we did when we were younger. And then, believe it or not, laughter sounds the same across cultures and countries. In fact, the sound of laughter is so familiar, it can be recognized even if it's played backwards on tape. So pretty amazing to think about these fast facts on laughter. So I want to provide a couple of definitions as it relates to humor. Humor is the quality that makes something laughable or amusing. There are many types of humors, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And unfortunately, humor changes over the years and cultures, and some things that are funny in some cultures or countries are not funny in others. So we'll talk about when humor should be used and when it cannot, because of how it can become offensive to some people and not to others. And then what's funny 15 years ago, 20 years ago may not be funny now. So it does change over time and cultures. Laughter is the actual biological reaction most often to moments or occasions of humor. So laughter is the physical expression of humor. A sense of humor is the ability to perceive humor or appreciate jokes. One sense of humor is both a perspective on life and a behavior that expresses that perspective. So everybody's humor is a little bit different. What is funny to someone may not be funny to someone else, and that's why we have to be careful if we're engaging in a humorous situation, that it's not offending others, right? So let's talk a little bit about the history of humor. So humor started back in biblical times, believe it or not. Proverbs 17:22 said, "A merry heart does good like medicine. A broken spirit dries the bones." In other words, you know, you live longer when you're finding humor in things. So even that was back in biblical times. And then the taming of the shrew, Shakespeare advises us, frame your mind to mirth and merriment, which bars 1,000 harms and lengthens life, right? So again, humor can bring life and quality of life to an individual and result in the lengthening of people's lives. And continuing with the history of the benefits of humor. So believe it or not, it wasn't until the 60s that humor started being studied and the benefits of humor began to be studied in the 1960s. So up until that time, no one thought about humor as having benefits, physical and mental well-being benefits. But in 1964, Dr. William Fry, he was a psychology professor, was the first to suggest laughter was a suitable field for study. In 1979, Dr. Norman Cousins' book, Anatomy of an Illness, led to a more focused investigation in the effects of humor on the physical and mental health of an individual. So it actually started gaining traction in the 60s and then was formalized in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s as something that could be beneficial to individuals. Before then, it wasn't known. So in 1989, there was a landmark study that was conducted by Lee Burke and Stanley Tan at Loma Linda University that confirmed this. So they actually did a study in 1989. And so what they did was they took 20 first-year medical students, and they took part in the study. And what they did was they watched a 45-minute video of the comedian Gallagher. I don't know if you guys remember Gallagher. He was the guy who would always like pound on watermelons and throw things into the audience and chop things up and saw things. But what they did was they took blood samples of the 21st year medical students, and they gathered blood samples before they went in to see the video, while they were watching the video, and immediately after viewing the video, as well as the very next day. And so what they were looking for was trying to see what changes in blood samples in the blood level might result as watching funny videos. And so here's what they found. Very interesting. They found that there was a significant increase in the number of activated T cells, which lymphocytes, and of course we know what lymphocytes are. They help us fight diseases and infections and those kinds of things. There was also a significant number or significant increase in the activation and number of natural killer cells. Again, cells that help the immune system, which of course that's really good for now because we're talking about Omicron and the variants and that kind of thing. And so if you're getting your immunity boosted, then that's obviously very helpful in our times right now. There was a significant increase in the production of antibodies, immunoglobulin A. And again, that was that is the antibody that helps protect and boost your immune system. So again, the well-being of an individual is improved when they did this study. So they thought, hey, you know, we actually have something here that shows the benefits of laughter and humor. And so, again, this was the first landmark study that had been done on determining, you know, how humor might help us. So the summary of the results of the study. So there's physiological and chemical changes. And what they found was that it improved immunity, like we were just talking about, reduced the levels of stress hormones, you know, those cortisol stress levels that, you know, that go up when we get stressed, and, you know, increase our heart rates, all those kinds of things. But so it reduced those cortisol levels. And then it also increased cardiovascular activity, which is heart health, right? And so people that increase their cardio activity have better health in the long run. So again, it was a landmark study that showed that people can benefit from humor and laughter in their life. So next I want to talk about, you know, how humor engages the brain and how the whole process of humor takes place within the brain and within the body. And so it actually does engage the whole body. So here's what happens when someone is telling a joke. As the joke is told, the left hemisphere processes the words. Of course, that left hemisphere is where information comes in. Then most of the brain activity moves to the frontal lobe, which is where, again, it starts to be processed. Moments later, the right hemisphere will synthesize, has some synthesizing capabilities. So what it's doing then is it's processing the joke. It joins with the left to process the joke. So in other words, information comes in, you hear words, both the left and right side of the brain are engaged in processing that information. Immediately after this, the increased brain wave activity spreads throughout the whole brain area, including the sensory processing areas, which is the occipital lobe, which, you know, is the back here. So something to think about that for those of you who might work with traumatic brain injury patients, and if they have damage in the right or left hemisphere or the occipital lobes of the brain, then their ability to process information is impaired. Therefore, their ability to find humor in things can be impaired. And that's why a lot of times you see this flat affect with them. So they will have that flat affect and may not be able to process the information and not always can appropriately understand what's taking place. So the increased fluctuations in the delta waves, they reach a peak. And as the brain gets the joke, then laughter occurs, which is the physical expression of the joke and laughter. So we know that there's not a lot of laughter in medicine, but there sure is a lot of medicine in laughter. In other words, laughter, it can be the best medicine sometimes. If we're having a rough day, watching something funny on TV can change that whole outcome of whatever might be taking place or dragging us down throughout the course of the day. We feel a lot better when we're watching a funny movie than maybe a scary movie or a drama. The emotions are very, very different. And so, you know, laughter is the best medicine. So, and I want to talk about what we call the 9 ways that humor heals. If I'm talking too fast, please let me know, or going too fast. So first of all, the reason we want to talk about this is we want to see how we can utilize this in our own life and work to improve that burnout that we were just talking about at the start. You know, 61% burnout in January alone of people that took part in that survey, which is unbelievable amount. And there's also been, just for additional information, there's also been a dramatic increase in alcohol abuse, substance abuse. The substance abuse or alcohol sales were up 59% during the course of the pandemic. So that tells me people were medicating because they had no other way to deal with it. But what we want to talk about is the way humor can heal and how we can bring it into our work and into our life. So the first thing it does is it combats fear. I once had a friend who got, this is not funny, but I once had a friend who got stuck in an elevator. And so the way she got through that and not be so terrified about what was happening was to tell herself jokes. She was on the phone with friends, making jokes about the situation, trying to, you know, get through it because she was very, very afraid of being in there like anybody else would be. But that's what happens with humor. It can combat that fear that might be taking place. It's really hard to be afraid and laugh at the same time. So if you can find humor in a situation, it can combat that fear. But it also comforts. While she was in there, you know, talking with someone on the phone, waiting for help to arrive, she got comfort from people and made jokes with them and found comfort in that. So, you know, again, humor can comfort individuals. If someone's having a bad day and you make a joke to that individual, it can alleviate some of that, you know, stress and anxiety and maybe a little bit of downness that a person might be experiencing. Humor relaxes. Again, thinking about watching a movie, how relaxed are you if you're watching a horror film? It's a lot easier to be relaxed if you're watching a funny film and can enjoy yourself and don't feel like you're on the edge of the seat. So humor can relax you as well. When you've had a stressful day, to come home and find some humor or do something funny can help alleviate that. You know, the studies also showed, when they did these studies, they also showed that humor reduces pain because of those cortisol levels going down, because those levels go up when people get anxious and get agitated. And so humor can actually reduce pain and make someone feel better. So again, I think it helps to deflect from whatever's happening, whatever the area of pain is. It can deflect from that and redirect your attention elsewhere. So again, humor can help with the pain. Humor boosts the immune system. We talked about that earlier when we talked about the lymphocytes and the immune system, that the killer cells that are there increased. So again, it boosts the immune system, which of course we all need that right now. And I'm sorry, I just realized I have I have a needle on the screen, which of course we don't need to be seeing these anymore, do we? Because that's all we've been seeing for the last 2 years. But it does boost the immune system and improve those killer cell levels as well. And of course, humor reduces stress. You know, again, if you've had that stressful day, there's got to be, you know, at some point there's this dropping off point where we've got to be able to get through the stress of the last 2 years and be able to find some kind of normalcy. And I think that's what humor can do, is it can bring back a sense of normalcy, be able to laugh to reduce that stress. And hopefully that's the direction that we're all headed at this point. Spreads happiness and joy and fun, and can allow you to find that break in your day-to-day life to be able to enjoy something, have that happiness. It's been really hard to find that sense of joy and happiness over the last 2 years, but that's one of the things that humor can actually do. And then it cultivates optimism. It's, again, really hard to be negative Nelly or Debbie Downer when you're listening to something funny. I think about that Saturday Night Live skit. It was called Debbie Downer, where she was always down about everything, but it was a funny skit. So obviously that was funny, but it's really hard to be in a negative mood. It's hard to be that down person if you're engaging in some type of humor activity, and it cultivates that optimism for us so that we can have something to kind of hang on to. I don't know, it's been hard in the last 2 years to try to find that, but I'm sure a lot of people have resulted to go into YouTube or TikTok to find funny things, those joyous videos, so that you can find happiness, whether it be a kid laughing or a child laughing, or just some way that we can have humor and have that optimism. And then last but not least, humor helps in communication, because when you're engaged in humor, you don't typically do that on your own. I mean, if you live by yourself and you're watching a movie and you're laughing, that's by yourself. But typically, you're engaging with someone, so there's going to be an improvement in communication, because the two of you or whoever the group may be is engaging in this humor activity together. So that improves that communication than if you weren't engaged in that activity. So again, these are 9 ways that humor can help us heal for over the last 2 years, and just promote positivity in our life in general. And so I hope that we can think about more engagement in some type of humor activity, again, whatever it may be for you, that to go and find that happy place and have that humor in your life. So I want to do a little quick joke break. I thought this was kind of funny. My doctor told me to avoid any unnecessary stress, so I didn't open up his bill. So there you go. There's your little joke break. So now I want to talk about the link between laughter and mental health. There is a direct correlation between your mental well-being and the exercise of laughing. And so what they found was that the laughter actually stops distressing emotions, because there's that interruption of those distressing emotions when you're laughing. It helps you relax and recharge and revitalize yourself. It shifts your perspective. So whatever the negative thing that you might have been focusing on prior to the laughter, it shifts that from that negative activity. And then it draws you closer to others as well, because again, historically, we're not sitting in a room laughing by ourselves. Hopefully we're not, but we're engaging with others and hopefully bringing ourselves closer together. So that is the actual link between laughter and mental health. There is a direct correlation with that. So I want to talk a little bit about the physical health benefits. We did talk about some of this earlier when we were talking about that landmark study, but the physical health benefits are, again, boosts immunities, which we can all use right now, lowers those stress hormones, which you talked about, decreases pain. It allows you to relax your muscles and improve your engagement. It also helps prevent heart disease, because someone who is happy and engaged, we talked about that cardiovascular activity increasing when you're engaging in humor and laughter. So it does actually promote a healthy heart. So that's important to think about right now. We'd all been penned up, and the gyms had closed down and nobody could do a lot of their physical activities that they wanted to do. And so engaging in some type of humor activity can help increase that cardiovascular activity. Now we want to talk a little bit about the mental health benefits. Some we have mentioned already, but it adds joy and zest to life. I mean, can you imagine going through life and not engaging in any kind of humor? And you may know people in your life that that don't laugh very much, and their disposition sometimes can be seen as negative, unhappy. Think about, you know, just people that you walk by that might be smiling. Those types of people are much more approachable if you wanted to approach someone than someone who's not smiling, who's not, doesn't have eye contact, not engaging. So it brings that joy to your life. It reduces and eases anxiety and tension. We talked a little bit about that, you know, being stuck in an elevator trying to reduce your anxiety. So humor can help with that, relieve stress. Having a big belly laugh will make you feel better. We know that. It improves your mood. You know, you can be in a bad mood and go home and find something really humorous that's funny, like maybe your favorite comedy show or TV show. I mean, I still like to watch Seinfeld and Friends and those kinds of things, because I just find it so funny and humorous that it just brings you into a good mood when you're watching those kinds of things. And then it strengthens your resilience. So instead of moving into that bad place, you now are in a good place so that you can deal with things as they may come. It's a lot, you deal with things in a lot better way when you're happy than if you're sad, right? We all know that. So that resilience is definitely strengthened with that. The social benefits. Strengthens relationships. We talked about that, where we're engaged with other people. We also talked about, this is interesting, there was a study done about this, about people with people that have humor and have good personalities and tell jokes and those kinds of things. People with a good sense of humor are much more attractive. The study actually showed that people with a good sense of humor are much more attractable, because you can, and it happens all the time, you hear people say, well, what attracted you to this person? And so he's got a really good sense of humor. So people are attracted to people with good sense of humor as well. If humor is used in a team setting, like, and I know this has happened to everybody, and it's happened to me because I teach a lot of continuing education classes on Zoom, and the craziest things will happen on Zoom. You know, you can have your kids walking by behind you when you're in the middle of this really serious meeting that you're supposed to be very professional with, or you can have one of the funniest things that I've seen, I don't know if you guys saw this video, but there was an actual court proceeding going on, and somehow, some way, that one of the attorneys had turned on a cat filter, and so when he's talking, even though it's proceedings, these legal proceedings are going on, it's talking like he's a cat, and he couldn't get the cat filter off, and so it was hysterical and so humorous, but it enhances teamwork. You know, we know that we're all stressed, we're all going through so many things, and to have this happen shows that we're all human. I think it humanizes us and lets us all feel that we're all in this together, so it enhances that teamwork. It helps diffuse conflict. You know, if there's a real tense moment going on, whether it be in your family or some other situation, if someone throws in a joke, it can totally diffuse the whole situation. So it can actually help a lot with diffusing and the communication in those types of conflict situations. And then it promotes group bonding. You know, again, like I said, we're all in this together, and for funny things to happen, you know, your camera goes out, you can't get on the call, you know, your kids are screaming in the back, the dog's barking, everything is going on, but we all know what it's like to be in those situations given the past 2 years, and so we all feel like we've been in this together. And I think that's the good news, is that having that humor and that laughter and that good sense of humor, it helps us all kind of pull together, because we definitely been in this together for sure. So let's talk a little bit about stress. So nothing erases unpleasant thoughts more effectively than concentrating on pleasant ones. And this was actually done, this was Hans Slay who did a study on stress and you know, how we react and how we respond to stress. And so one of the things she found in the study was that if we would inflect or focus on more pleasant things in our life, whether it be humorous and or our happy place, whatever that may be, if we reflected on that, that would reduce levels of stress within the body. Also, much of the suffering we experience is a result of is not a result of our difficulties, but it's how we view them. In other words, it's not the event, but it's how we relate to it. So, you know, you can be a half glass full or half glass empty, but if you're half glass full, then you're perceiving things in a different way, which means that to respond to it in a more positive way, how can I resolve this? What can we do? You know, especially in work, I'm always saying this to our staff. Okay, what's our plan here? Instead of being woe is me and oh gosh, I can't believe this happened. It's your response to it and how you view it and how you resolve it that makes it better. And so the important thing is, so when we're dealing with these issues that come up, try to think of it as from a half glass full perspective and view it in a different light, because that will help us to be able to get through the difficult situation, and then also have cooler heads to prevail. And so maybe the situation is not so dire as it might first appear to be. So again, perspective is everything when it comes to whatever the situation may be. So what are deterrents to humor? And it's important to know what these are, because this is where you know to do humor or not inject humor. So one of the deterrents is embarrassment, rejection, and criticism. Like, so if you do a joke and then it turns out it's not that funny, or at least it's not funny to the group that you might have drop the joke into or inserted the humor into. So you might get embarrassed, and if you get embarrassed, you might feel rejected or somebody might criticize you. And so that's going to keep you from injecting humor or engaging in some type of humorous situation. Everybody's sense of humor is different. Everybody's sense of humor is different. So what might be funny to someone may not be funny to someone else. And I think that it is even more hypercritical during the last 2 years. I also think during the last political circuit campaign, you know, to try to inject humor in something, people may not find it funny and they may be offended by it. So again, everyone's sense of humor is different. I talked about different cultures. Humor is different too. What's funny in some cultures is not funny in other cultures. And humor changes. It's what was funny, you know, 10 years ago may not be funny now. Humor is a risky business. This is the important thing to remember. Never, ever laugh at the expense of others. In other words, you don't make fun of people to find this humorous. It's never, ever funny to make fun of somebody. So I think that's really important to take away from today more than anything, because humor at the expense of others is never a good thing. And then use what they call the A, T, and T principles. Make sure it's appropriate, it's timely, and it's tasteful. Again, some people may be offended. I mean, some people are offended by foul language, so maybe you don't use foul language. Other people are not. Some people, you know, find some things really funny, and so and that's why sometimes when you go see a comedian and if they use foul language throughout the entire time, that might be offensive to someone. So that would be something that you would avoid and not go to. Maybe find a family-friendly comedian if that's what you're wanted to hear. So again, appropriate, timely, and tasteful. And it's always funny to laugh at yourself, right? You know, you can never go wrong at always laughing at yourself. So most people find that funny too, by the way. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the types of humor. So there's the anecdote. That's where you're telling the tale of woe. You're giving information. Well, back in the day, when this is what happened to me, kind of thing. So it's an anecdote, and then a blooper. I don't know if you guys are probably too young to remember Candid Camera. or the home videos shows. But a blooper is an embarrassing mistake that allows us to feel better or laugh about ourselves. In other words, we're laughing at ourselves. We do silly things and then you laugh at yourself. I laugh at myself all the time because I'm extremely klutzy. And so, you know, doing crazy things like missing a chair and then falling on the floor, not hurting myself. But the point is, it's funny to laugh at ourselves, and you have to be able to laugh because sometimes it's so ridiculous that you can't. Dark humor, it's a funny dark story that should not be told to the wrong person. So in other words, if you are that person that tells really dark humor, as some people like that, make sure you're telling to a person who can appreciate it, because if you tell it to the wrong person, they may be offended, right? And then there's ethnic humor. So this is a dicey situation. Insensitive jokes that unite disparate ethics, racial, and cultural groups. You got to be careful on that, because especially in this day and age, there is what people refer to, and I'm not saying myself in general, but there's the people that are of the woke culture that would be offended by that, and to call somebody else out and use them at the expense to get humor based on their race, their ethnicity, their cultural groups, that should never be done. That's not a good thing to do, unless you're maybe making fun of yourself. I know I have a lot of Jewish friends. They love to make fun of themselves and all their little quirky things that they do, and they do it to themselves. They don't do it to other people. So again, you have to be very careful when you do these kinds of things, but that's not appropriate. And then facetious is when you say something you think is funny and no one laughs. So you think something's funny and you say something facetious and nobody else thinks it's funny. So only you get the humor, maybe, in this situation. Passive humor, that's like watching prepared materials such as a comic or funny movie, or even reading humorous books. So that would be passive humor, like watching Seinfeld or Friends. Spontaneous humor, that's where you find humor in everyday situations. Again, doing something silly, tripping on off the curb, just something funny that we do in our lives that makes us laugh. A prank, that's a trick that often results in a prankster looking foolish, where you're playing a prank on somebody and maybe the prank doesn't turn out too funny. Or then you've got sarcasm, which they consider the lowest form of wit, which is not very funny, but it's usually done by people that tend to be extremely intelligent, maybe that don't have the best sense of humor, so they use sarcasm to state some type of humor that they find. All right, we have another joke break. Now, I want to explain something before I tell this funny joke. It's funny to me, and the reason it is because, as I mentioned when we started the presentation, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and before I came in comp, I've been in comp for about 17 years, and I think it's 17. Oh, I think, no, it's 18 this year. But before I went into comp, I was in psych services for about 20-something years or so, and so I was the director of a 52-bed bed locked unit and a 25-bed med psych unit, and so it can be extremely stressful working in a locked unit in psych, because people are all over the place emotionally, thought disorders, all kinds of things happen. And we actually had this joke in the nurses station, so I hope it's not offensive to anyone, but we used to joke about this because the job is so stressful, and a lot of people find humor in stressful situations to decrease that stressful. So this is my joke from when I used to work in psych. This is the answering machine message for the Mental Health Institute. Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Hotline. If you are obsessive compulsive, press 1 repeatedly. If you are codependent, please ask someone to press number 2 for you. If you have multiple personalities, please press 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you are paranoid, we already know who you are and what you want, but stay on the line while we trace your call. If you are schizophrenic, listen carefully and a small voice will tell you which number to press. If you are delusional, press 7 and your call will be transferred to the mothership. So again, this was we would actually have this hanging up in our nurses station, and you do that in some stressful situations. If you've ever worked in medical, like in an emergency room or on the floor, it can be extremely stressful depending on what's going on any given day at any given moment. And so you have to be able to find the humor in those kinds of things because it can be so stressful. So I would encourage you to find humor in some types of these stressful situations so you can allow yourself to release that stress and allow yourself to find joy in sometimes some very stressful situations. Okay. So I forgot to tell you guys there's going to be a little test at the end of this presentation, but I'll help you out, I promise. So tips for cultivating your sense of humor. They sound simple enough, but I just wanted to make sure that you have these before we get to the test. So first of all, laugh at yourself. Again, some of the funniest situations are when you can find humor and laugh at yourself for doing silly things, you know. Attempt to laugh at situations rather than bemoan them. In other words, finding a half glass full versus half glass empty. Surround yourself with reminders to lighten up. I mean, put a funny saying up on the wall. Like I mentioned, we had that joke up in the nurses station. Find humor in things, you know, remind yourself to laugh so that you can have that humor and that joy in your life. Remember funny things that happen, you know, reminisce with your friends. Remember about that time when we did such and such and how crazy that was and how funny that was? You know, remember when you split your pants that day you tried to do this? Yeah, just remember funny things that happen. Remind yourself of those things. Don't dwell on the negative. Oh, Debbie Downer, because it's important, again, to find happiness in everyday life. Find your inner child. Remember at the beginning we said that kids start laughing at the age of 4, and they laugh, what, 100 times? When we laugh like 14, 15 times a day. Find that inner joy, that inner child. Remember, dance like a kid, you know, those kinds of things, so that you can have that joy in your life. And deal with stress. Insert humor in some of those stressful situations. And of course, don't go a day without laughing. It's so important to find something funny each day. Again, especially now with all the things that we've been through, it's just been extremely stressful. And so I would just encourage everyone to make sure every day you find something funny to laugh about to help you, you know, cope and deal with everything that's going on around us right now. Okay. I want to leave about 5 minutes in case people have questions, but okay. If you can put your answer off to the side in the chat box if you have these answers. Okay, so what did we say? List 3 ways that humor heals. What did we say that how humor heals? I don't know if anybody remembers this, but we did say, I remember I talked about the elevator situation. It combats fear. And it helps to comfort and relax us, right? We talked about it deflects the pain that we may feel. So yeah, so that's helps with the immune system. We talked about that several times, about boosting your immune system. Spreads happiness, cultivates optimism, helps with communication. So many things. There's 9 ways. We talked about the 9 ways that humor can heal, right?
I'd like to give a shout out to Brandy, Roberta, and Estelle. They all help. They all gave answers. We're getting more and more from Carla, as well as Demetrius. That talks about relaxing us. Humor combats fear, comfort. So boosts immunity. So they are on track and really got today's message. Good job.
Yeah, you guys are on fire. You're really paying attention. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so number 2 is, what are the physical health benefits of laughter and humor? We talked a lot about that, didn't we? Let's see if I can see any of your answers. Yep, there you go.
Joelle helps with the blood pressure. She got that immediately.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. Again, we go back to the boosting immunity because we're all trying to do that. Helps with heart cardiovascular activity. We talked about that, right?
Don Crocker says it boosts immunity. Stacy talks about lowering blood pressure, as does some others. Carla talks about it decreasing pain. Demetrius is back in with pain. It helps your immunity. Danielle, so they are on it. Jessica also talks about immunity. Also, Joelle mentions weight loss or weight, how it helps you with your weight.
That's great, guys. Wow, yay. Okay, number 3 is, what are the mental health benefits of laughter and humor? And we talked about the physical, and we also talked about the mental health benefits.
Demetrius says it adds joy to your life.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly right. Improves mood. Remember, we've all been down the last 2 years. It's just been so stressful, and so it relieves that stress and improves our mood when we find something humorous in life.
Jillian says that it reduces stress, which is really important for mental health.
Absolutely, especially now. And it strengthens your resilience, right? If you can find something humorous in life, it helps you kind of go on and move on and try to continue down the path, because it's that resilience that help you get through these things.
Well, Brandy said exactly that same thing. She says it gives you a different outlook on things. And Roberta says that it helps decrease anxiety and depression, and increases overall happiness, is what Estelle's saying. So they are all on it. You guys, like Teresa said, really on fire. I love this participation. Thank you all.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Wow, great job, everybody. Okay, number 4, what are the social benefits? So we had the physical benefits, the mental health benefits, and the social benefits. Remember I said we tend to be more attracted to people with good sense of humor than somebody who's negative all the time. So people that are humorous are more attractive typically, because they seem to be happy and have a smile on their face, right? You'd rather engage with somebody like that than somebody's grumpy, right?
Absolutely.
It helps with team building. We talked a little bit about that, about during the Zoom calls and the craziness that's going on, and just how, camaraderie wise, people can insert humor in it. It helps with that bonding of the team. So we know that it helps with conflict, diffuses conflict, strengthens relationships, which is about team building. And then let's see, number 5. Now, this one was one I pointed out that I thought was a really important takeaway from today. When should we never use humor? I know you guys know this one.
We should never use humor when it pokes fun at another.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Never use humor at the expense of others.
Right.
Yeah. Very good. All right.
No racial jokes. Jessica says no racial jokes are appropriate ever. We agree with that. Roberta says never at the expense of another person.
That's right. That's what bullies do. They make fun of people, right? That's what bullies do. So that's never ever appropriate to do that. Okay, I want to leave you with this. We don't laugh because we are happy. We are happy because we laugh. That's William James said that. So remember that. Sometimes we don't laugh because we're happy. We are happy because we laugh. And so it goes hand in hand. Happiness and laughter hand in hand. So I want to leave that with you.
Well, we really appreciate this fountain of knowledge that you gave us. And I think it's one of those topics that we often don't think about. It's something that's so important to us on an everyday basis. And don't we all wish we were children and we laugh that many times a day? And to see a child laugh is so infectious, right? We just want to gobble up the child. I mean, I can remember I have one child, one son, and I remember when he would laugh, I would just want to make him do that same thing over and over again. So I hope that all of us finds humor in things in our lives so that we can continue to be healthy and happy and overcome any obstacles. Darcy, do you have any closing words you'd like to say to our audience?
Well, if anybody wants to laugh, just give me a call. I'll laugh with you. I'm a contagious laugher, so
Yeah, yeah. You
it's
know,
fun. I just appreciate being here today, and thank you for that, Teresa. It definitely helps and reminds us all of, we got to just get out there, smile, laugh, and just make everybody feel better,
Teresa, can you maybe make this full circle real quick and tell us how we can implement this in the workers' comp system and how we can include this in with our injured workers?
Yeah, I think the important thing when you're dealing with injured workers, I mean, they have a lot going on, as we know. They are dealing with pain and with loss of financial security in some cases. But I think if you come with a smile, but you also let them know that you're there to support them and care for them. Having done this for a while, it's easy to be jaded. I know that. But I think what we have to remind ourselves in these circumstances, everybody's human. And I love that quote that says, everybody's human and everybody's going through something that you may not know about. So make sure you can share a little kindness and happiness with that individual, because they may be dealing with something behind the scenes that you know nothing of. And I think that's so important to remember that. Even with our injured workers, even though sometimes it's easy to be burned out and skeptical sometimes, but I would just say, remind ourselves that our teammates, people in our lives, and even the injured workers are all going through something, and we may not know what that is.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you talked about a blooper reel. Maybe one day we'll have a Macro Pro and Friends webinar blooper reel and be able to see that. See, there's a blooper. I said wheel instead of reel, right? Let's just and realize we're all human, and that if we don't have to be perfect. And I think that's the thing that people think. They think they have to be perfect. I remember when I first started to do these webinars, I would do a lot of editing because I thought, oh, this could have been better, that could have been better, and now I pretty much place them as is, because we're just all human. And I think that's what makes us great, is when we're authentic and we make mistakes and we just move on past those, right? Because there's no reason to be critical. We might as well just laugh and move on. So with that, I want to thank our experts. I want to thank Darcy, and I want to thank all of you guys for participating today. All of the Macro Pro and Friends webinars are listed on the Macro Pro website. You can check it every week, because we add programs on a regular basis. We have another one that's going on today, and it's going to talk about affirmative actions, I think it is. And so there's lots of different things. We also have another one on how to get settlements moving along using a professional administrator and using certain things to work with the applicant's attorneys to be able to see why settling and using a structured settlement might be in the best interest of the injured worker. So look for those. They're coming up, and we will see you at the next Macro Pro and Friends. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.